Now joining me in the studio to provide another point of view on transportation funding and related accomplishments of the 2017 legislative session is the ranking minority member of the Transportation Committee, Senator Scott Dibble. Welcome.
Thanks, Shannon.
You've repeatedly called for dedicated funding for transportation. What's wrong with using surplus money and one-time funds to fund transportation, as happened partially in this most recent budget?
Well, there's nothing inherently wrong with it if you're being honest about using one-time dollars, surplus dollars, and helping people understand that that's just, like for 1 year's worth of getting some transportation done. However, we need to do long-term planning and put some money on the table to invest in upgrading our roadway infrastructure and our transit system for the long term. That's clearly what Minnesota needs to respond to its mobility needs, to respond to an expanding population, a growing economy. And if we're going to be engaging in that process, you have to plan for major capital investments. These are major construction projects. You're asking the private sector to invest in staffing up and in doing a lot of investment in their equipment infrastructure, going to the lending markets and really being able to meet those construction demands over the long term. The typical roadway project takes a number of years. You can't just plunk some money down and get a roadway project done in a year. So sure, using some one-time dollars for a very short-term stopgap measure, but if you're really doing a transportation bill that Minnesota needs, you need to put some permanent funding on the table.
How do you win the argument with Minnesotans who are averse to increasing the gas tax or other funding mechanisms that could provide that continued long-term funding? How do you win the argument that this money needs to happen?
Well, I actually believe that the public is a lot farther in front of where the legislature and legislators are, and they understand that the gas tax that we do pay presently only has 40% of its purchasing value. The last time there was a substantial increase to the gas tax that we're falling further and further behind. I've been all around the state and had these discussions with leaders of local communities, business leaders, county leaders, municipal leaders, and they're telling us that our roadway infrastructure, which is 50 years old, they're putting a ton of pressure on their property tax, or things are just simply going unimproved, falling apart. Our roadway system is at the end of its useful life, and if you do a little investment, you get so much more return for the dollar. And for whatever reason, there's a disconnect between what we're hearing from the public and local leaders and what happens at the legislature.
And so you're arguing that more lawmakers need to get behind an initiative for dedicated funding.
Right. I think the problem is that folks have signed up for a very ideological, doctrinaire political program of no new taxes, thinking that that's where their political future lies. And I think the truth is that if you look at the example of 20-some other states around the country, many of which are led, or most of which are led by Republican legislatures and Republican governors, including neighboring states, they've put a little bit more gas tax into their transportation system, as well as some of the other sources, license tab fees, and in some cases motor vehicle sales tax, and seen the benefit of those investments and the return to their economy. And there has been no political fallout. There's only been actually a favorable political response. People, whenever you ask someone, do you support more taxes? They say no. Do you support better roads, better mobility, better transit? They say yes. And when you connect those two, people understand. A little bit of input, a great output, and you get value for what you're paying for.
Transportation funding has always been a struggle at the legislature. And so this session, state lawmakers asked the Minnesota Department of Transportation to prepare a report about strategies to reduce congestion and raise revenue, including toll roads. Mm-hmm. So do you support toll roads as a possible way of funding?
I possibly support toll roads under certain circumstances and if we understand them correctly. First of all, toll roads in no way, shape, or form are the solution to our funding needs. Toll roads have a very specific application in very specific places for particular corridors. So, for example, if a particular corridor needs a substantial improvement, and there's a way to generate those dollars from user fees, which are tolls, there's municipal consent and people have options and alternatives to paying the toll. Sure, exploring that idea has merit. But what happens is tolls are looked to as the funding source, the solution to our transportation problems. That will never happen. And if we're going to be hiding behind tolls as a premise for not doing what needs to be done, keep in mind the bill that was passed by the Republicans only gets to about 10% of the identified need just to maintain our roadway system, to bring it up to standards, much less position ourselves for the future growth in our population, which is going to approach 800,000 to maybe 1 million more people in Minnesota. That's a substantial amount of pressure on our roadways that we can't address with these little drips of resources that we're putting into it.
Well, and one way to fight congestion, it's argued, is light rail as a form of mass transit. Some opponents have said that it's social engineering designed to promote an urban vision of dense housing and government transit. The 2016 Republican Party platform said that these initiatives are designed to coerce people out of their cars. How do you respond in terms of that argument in moving people, especially in denser metropolitan areas?
Oh, well, first of all, those are just dog whistle politics, buzzwords designed to agitate the extreme far right of the Republican voting base. So none of that makes any sense. It's all just buzzwords that are designed to inflame emotion. The fact is that we need to follow where people want to go. And the fact is we're losing a millennial population. We're net losing millennial populations. Our demographer tells us that. And when you ask the business community what is their biggest problem in staffing up the necessary workforce for the emerging economy, young people, millennials, the creative class, they're talking about where they're choosing to live, which kind of metropolitan areas they want to be in. And those are the metropolitan areas that are investing in quality of life amenities. A fundamental lever for quality of life amenities is a robust and diverse transportation and transit system. So if we want to actually compete on a level playing field with all the other metropolitan areas that are really moving pretty quickly ahead of us in the competitive economy that's emerging for the future, we have to make these kinds of rail, bus, bike, and pedestrian transportation investments.
One last question. We're hearing more and more about autonomous driving or self-driving cars. How will this new emerging technology affect transportation funding, and the future? Is this something we need to be talking about now?
Well, absolutely we do. Those technologies are emerging. It's hard to say exactly how fast they'll be.
I think Ford is hoping by 2021.
Yeah, I don't think everyone's going to be in an autonomous car, but you know, there's going to be some. You know, we're going to be moving in that direction. I mean, I don't know if the future, the Jetsons, is actually going to come about or not. We need to understand that better. I do think there will continue to be a significant role for transit as we understand it today. Another major aspect of transit, of course, is getting people connected to where the jobs are. People who lack that access. That is the major policy intervention we have to get people up and out of poverty and firmly in the middle class long term, so that they have family supporting jobs. We have lots of folks in our metropolitan area who don't have access to those jobs in the job rich areas of our metropolitan area. So transit will continue to be a fundamental investment. Autonomous vehicles is going to necessitate changes to how our infrastructure is designed, and sometimes you know, there's some thought that the infrastructure itself will have interactivity with the automobiles and the other vehicles that are moving down the roadway. So narrower lanes, faster throughput, those sorts of things. So we have to start thinking about that and start planning for that future too.
Senator Dibble, thanks so much.
Thank you.